Welcome to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel Walston. And in this space, we navigate life together. We ask the hard questions like, what is the truth you haven't told? But most importantly, we grow together. And sometimes that leads to a change of heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to A Change of Heart podcast. I am your host, Angel. Welcome to the potty. If you are watching this on my YouTube channel, as you can tell, there is no video, just audio only. Bear with me. I'm doing the best I can with what I got, okay? It literally was either we're going to get the podcast up on time or we're going to look presentable and get the podcast up late. So we're going to get the podcast up on time, all right? So today we are talking about being in a season of waiting. But before we jump into today's topic, we have our question of the day. And today's question is, what canceled TV series would you like to see brought back for just one more season? One more season. I'm going to say Girlfriends. And I thought about this. I'm choosing Girlfriends because I feel like there was some unresolved stuff that it would have been great for them to wrap it up with one more season just so you can get all of the stuff. And also, I wanted to see Toni come back. I wanted to see her and Joan's relationship maybe not be mended, but at least them have a woman-to-woman, a heart-to-heart conversation. Y'all feel me? So that is what I would like to see. I feel like there are other series that just, like, they ended on cliffhangers. I don't really care about Moesha because that ended on a cliffhanger, but Girlfriends is the one for me that it's like, oh, I would have liked to have seen this come, like this full circle moment where we had closure, because we didn't really get that. So if you are watching this on my YouTube channel, technically listening to this on my YouTube channel, you can put your answer in the comments section, or you can answer on my Instagram. I will post the question of the day in my stories at Angel C. Walston. All right, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. So we're talking about being in this season of waiting. And I feel like this is such a relatable topic because all of us are in some type of period of waiting. It may not look the same for everyone. Some people may be waiting for healing. Some people may be waiting for a new job. Some people may be waiting for a relationship. Some people may be waiting for finances. Like, we all have different things that we are waiting on. And I had the opportunity to speak at my church. This was sometime last year, the end of last year, and I did a message called The Waiting Room, and just being in that season of waiting. And as we are going through these different things where we have to wait, we don't always wait well. You know what I mean? Like, we don't always respond in the best way. Sometimes we try to take matters into our own hands. Sometimes we get to a point where we just be out here wilding, and we put ourselves in a position where we can end up prolonging things unnecessarily because we are in this space where it's like, God, I'm tired of waiting. Like, I've been waiting. I've wanted this to happen. And there's nothing worse, y'all, if we can be honest, to be in a season of waiting where you've been praying and believing and you see things happening for other people that you have wanted. And you want to be happy for them, right? It's a celebratory time. You want to be excited for them, especially when it's friends, loved ones. But the truth of the matter is sometimes that can be a really bittersweet moment to be in when you see something happening for someone that you are very much so excited for them, you're happy for them, but it's also like, God, when is it gonna be my turn? And we don't always want to say that out loud because let's be honest, it's a little ugly, right? But we're also human, and we do have those feelings, and we do have those moments where we can act selfishly, call a thing. We have those moments where we can feel as though we've been overlooked. We can have those moments where we have just like that feeling of like, God, did you not hear my prayer? Like, did you forget about me? Do you not care? Do you not see? And so I want to talk about just being in this season of waiting because I feel like there's a lot of us who are just trying to navigate that space. And the longer you are in a space of waiting, the longer it allows for doubt to set in, the longer it allows you to get prideful and try to take matters into your own hands, and you start doing all kinds of things, trying to create the life that you want. And then you trying to pray yourself out of stuff that is like, girl, if you would have just waited, If you would have just took your time, like I told you to, you would not have had to end up in this situation that ultimately ended up prolonging where it is that you actually want to be. And so I want to share something from a devotional that I'm doing. It's through Belong Church. It is their Impact and Influence devotion. It's on the YouVersion app. I will link the devotion in the description box as well as in my show notes for anyone who wants to refer back to it. So in this devotion is talking about the Israelites being in the wilderness for 40 years. And just to give some context to it, this is a very abbreviated version of it, but the Israelites were in the wilderness for a 40-year period to get to the land that was promised to them, also known as the Promised Land. And the thing is, a large part of the reason why it took them so long to get there was because of them being disobedient. It wasn't because this was actually a 40-year trek that it should not have taken that long. So I want to share some of the things that is mentioned in this devotion because the wilderness is known to be this space that is uncomfortable, this space that is unfamiliar, this space that takes a long time. And there can be a number of reasons as to why you may be in what you may feel like your season of waiting or your season of being in the wilderness, why it's taking so long. So I just wanted to share this because I thought that it helped to kind of give a new and good perspective on being in a season of waiting or being in the wilderness. So it says, at many points throughout life, you will find yourself navigating challenging spaces just like the Israelites. When you do, know that you're in for a treat. That treat is being in a wide open space with nothing but room to receive a refined heart and deeper intimacy with God. It makes the wilderness worth it. Before there can be a treat, though, there is a time of heart work. The wilderness is always conducive to the revealing of the heart and the refining of the heart. When God wants to humble and test us in order to know what's in our heart, his method for doing so is often leading us away from what's comfortable and familiar into what's foreign and uncertain. That don't sound like a good time. On the surface, that doesn't sound so exciting. But if you look a little deeper, you will begin to see that these environments are necessary for your development, and they offer the opportunity for you to grow more aware of God's proximity or closeness to you. So let's talk about it. I want to kind of go back because the part where it says it makes the wilderness worth it. So when we think about being in a space of waiting, when we think about being in this season where we're waiting on something, a lot of times it doesn't feel like the wait is worth it. But if you listen to people talk about being on the other side of their wait, you oftentimes hear them say the wait was worth it, whether it was waiting to buy a house, waiting for the job, waiting to get married, waiting for sex until marriage. Like you hear people oftentimes say like, I'm so glad that I waited on God's best. I'm so glad that I waited. But listen, y'all, can we tell the truth and shame the devil real quick? When we are in the middle of waiting, it doesn't feel like the wait is worth it. Sometimes we look at the wait as being punishment. Sometimes we look at the wait as us being, like I said, overlooked or forgotten about God. It's like, God, do you not even see my situation? Do you see what I'm in need of? Do you see what I want? But when we're able to get on the other side of things, it helps to give us this newfound perspective. So the first thing I want to talk about is when we are in a season of waiting, don't allow the wait to lead you to forget what has already happened, what has already taken place. So what do I mean by this? A lot of times we get amnesia when we are trying to get to the next. And it's funny because I have a very bad habit of not being present in the right now. I am very guilty of wanting something, getting there, on to the next thing. And that's not healthy nor beneficial because you put yourself in a situation where it's not that you don't have gratitude, but you don't take the moments to really think about how far you've come. You don't take the moments to think about how much you've grown, how much you've learned. You just focus on where you are not yet. And in doing so, we completely forget how there were times where we wanted to be in the exact same place that we are right now. You'll hear people say that you forget that you're living in your answered prayers because a prayer that you want right now hasn't been answered yet. And we can put ourselves in a position that while we are in the place of waiting, while we're in the place of wanting to get to the next, we forget where God has already brought us. We forget the things that we've already overcome. We forget the things that we've already acquired, the things that we've already accomplished, that we could say back then, it was worth the wait. It was worth me going through this lesson. It was worth me being able to have this situation to happen or not happen in some cases so that I could be who I am today. And so I want to just encourage you and also challenge you when you're in a space of waiting to don't allow your wait to make you lose sight or to give you amnesia to the things that have already happened. Don't forget about the things that have already taken place. Don't forget about the things that you thought were not achievable that you're standing in right now. Because you can get so consumed by what you lack that you don't even remember what you've gained. And you don't even remember the things that you have, the things, the lessons, the people, the things that came out of situations that you felt like this is never going to happen. I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. And you will put yourself in a situation that this thing over here that happened 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago seems irrelevant when it was such a pressing matter 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so we have to be careful what thoughts we allow to take place and to plant seeds within us while we're in a space of waiting. Because like I said, we oftentimes hear the saying that, the more time passes, time heals all wounds and all of that. It sounds good, but typically the more time that passes, yes, healing can take place, but also it can put you in a position for doubt to set in. It can put you in a position for amnesia to set in. It can put you in a position for you to have acquired these things and still feel like it's not good enough because it's not what you want. And so as you are in a position of while you are waiting, sometimes you have to go back and look at the last thing that God did. When you're in a position of waiting, you have to go back and be reminded of the things that have already happened. We can't be a people who are always looking to the next thing and forgetting what already was, because it robs you of your gratitude. It truly robs you of your gratitude, because it's like, I can't be happy right now because I don't have this. And we talked in, I believe, season 1 or season 2 about always chasing the next destination, always chasing the next thing. So you're never actually in a space where you get to enjoy the fruits of the things that you've already seen the fruit of, the things that have already been answered prayers, the things that you have already worked hard for, the things that you have already done, because you're already on to the next destination before you've really taken time to be excited, to be grateful, to be thankful for where you are right now. And when we're in this rat race of always chasing the next destination to make us happy, to chasing the next destination to make us feel fulfilled, chasing the next thing, let me go ahead and pop your bubble real quick. The next thing is never going to be the fix. You're always going to be chasing something that will fill a void that's not fillable with anything but God. And a lot of times as we are in this season of waiting, we think the next thing is going to make us happy. We think once I get this, then I'll be happy. Once I get that, then everything is going to work out. Once this happens for me, then everything is going to turn around. And we don't realize it's like you're chasing a thing and you don't realize until it doesn't happen, or when it does happen and nothing changes as far as how you feel or what you thought it would make you feel like, that in itself is not what's going to fill the void that you are avoiding, or the void that is simply a God fix. It's not something that you can do on your own. It's not something that a man is going to fix. It's not something that money is going to fix. It's not something that a destination is going to fix. Like, you ultimately have to do some inner work. And what I love about this devotion is that it gives us another perspective to consider about being in a season of waiting, or being in a space that we deem the wilderness. It is giving us an opportunity to get closer to God. It's giving us an opportunity to allow him to refine our hearts, allow him to do some things in us. Listen, Can we be honest with ourselves for a moment? I'll be honest for us, okay? You ain't got to be honest. I'll be honest for us. There are some things that I wanted 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And listen, baby, if I would have got those things 5, 10 years ago, my attitude, my personality, my struggles, my issues would not have allowed me to be able to hold on to them. Truth of the matter is, there are things today that my attitude, my personality would not allow me to hold on to. And I'm not saying that you have to be perfect. I'm not saying that you have to have everything together, have to have everything all figured out before God sends this, that, or the fourth. No. We're going to go ahead and shut that down right now. But with that, there are some things that, God wants to work in our hearts. There's some things that he wants to heal. There are some things that he wants to help us through. There are some things that he wants to work through in us so that when we get the thing that we think we want, or it may even help us to realize the thing that we think we want and need so bad is like, actually, that ain't even it. Like, I don't even need that. I don't even want that. But when we get the thing that we think we want or what we actually need, you treasure it in a different way. You handle it in a different way. You're able to nurture it in a different way because the healed version of you is handling it, or a version of you who is at least in progress. And sometimes we think we got it all figured out. We think we all ready for stuff. We think that we are, not that we're perfect, but we just feel like, we all that in a bag of chips. And listen, even you with your cute self, we got some stuff to work on. And I say we because I'm including myself in it. And so while you're in the wilderness, I don't think wilderness or waiting period, I don't want you to walk away from this and feel like you are always a project that has to be fixed, because that's exhausting. It is truly exhausting. We are always going to be in process. We will always be a work in progress. We should always be a work in progress. But ultimately, don't despise the waiting because you don't want to do the work. I'm going to say that one more time for the people in the back, people on the side. Don't despise the waiting because you don't want to do the work. There's truly some things that God wants to work on the inside of you. There's some things that you may need to do, some things you need to let go of, some things that you need to work through. And you can get those things and still be working through them as well. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you could potentially be slowing the process or the progress of it because of you choosing not to do the work in the wait. I'm gonna leave that right there. Moving along. So the next thing I want you to consider while you're in your season of waiting is that there is a big difference in being proactive in your waiting versus being disobedient in your waiting. Let's talk about it. Can we talk about it? So what do I mean by this? You can be proactive in your waiting. So even though you may be in a season of waiting, you don't know when you need to move, you don't know when you need to do, you don't know when you need to go, but you're not just sitting around aimlessly, right? You still have your faith, you're still believing, you're still hopeful, you're out here working on yourself, you allowing God to do what he needs to do, right? That's one thing. We cool with that. That's not an issue. I'm talking about when you try to start taking matters into your own hands and you start trying to make things happen that God ain't never tell you to even move on, yet alone think about. I think it's really important to keep in mind that just because you have a vision for something, just because you have a dream about something, just because someone has spoken something to you, timing is everything. So you can have a vision for something and it can be clear as day, but the time for you to actually execute it could very well be 5 years later. And I know that's frustrating. I know it's like, don't nobody want to wait that long. It's like, I got the vision. I want to do it right now. I get it. I'm like that too. I got the idea. I got the thought. I'm trying to jump on that thing. Sometimes you have to allow yourself to go through a season of preparation. Just because you have the vision right now that does not mean that it is time to execute. It may be a time for you to prepare and to position you for where it is that you want to be. A lot of times what we end up doing, however, is we say we want something. We're ready for something. I want to do this. I want to be this. And it may even start out with good intentions. And we start putting ourselves in positions to be seen, to be found, to be discovered, to all of these different things. And we feel like when God is not moving in the way that we want him to, we like, you know what? He need help. He don't need your help, daughter. Let me go ahead and tell you that right now. We got to be reminded of that because our help ends up being more of a hindrance, and we can't even see that sometimes because we are so focused on what we want that we will do whatever it takes to make it happen. So let me ask you this. What happens when God interrupts your plans? All the things that you plan for yourself, all the things that you have set up to make it happen. What happens when something comes in and interrupt those plans? A lot of times when we're in a season of waiting, we end up taking matters into our own hands, calling ourselves being proactive, calling ourselves preparing. And like I said, there's a big difference between being proactive versus being disobedient and trying to do things that God never even told you to do. But we'll take matters into our own hands, trying to create this life that we so desperately think we deserve, that we feel like is owed to us because I do all the right things. I do this, I do that. I'm nice. I give to people, all the things. But here's the gag, y'all. Let me let y'all in on some tea real quick. The very thing that you won't take your hands off is the weight that is keeping you in the wait. Let me break that down because I want to make sure y'all get this. The very thing that you won't take your hands off in this season is the weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, that is keeping you in the wait, W-A-I-T. There are things that you are holding so tightly to. There are things that you are trying to make happen. There are things that you are trying to force. There are relationships that you are trying to force. There are situations that you are trying to force. And listen, God has been asking you to release some things for a minute now. There are things that he has been asking you to let go of that you have been wrestling with. Here's what we got to understand. God is a God of peace. If you find yourself wrestling with something, that is not peace, baby. Like that is not peace. And we put ourselves in a position wanting to get out of this space of waiting. We want to get out of this season of waiting, but the truth is, some of the issues that have been created, the weight that you are carrying that is keeping you from going to where you want to go to next, is a result of situations that you have created within your own will. Things that you have taken on, things that you have decided that I need this so bad. I want this so bad. So I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to grind. I'm going to push. I'm going to do. And you end up burned out because you're active and doing all of this stuff. It's not that you don't have the capacity to do it. You weren't created to do that. You weren't supposed to be doing that in this season. Like that's not what you're called to right now. And so you're out here just operating, doing all kind of stuff, just busy for no reason. Like what you so busy for? Sometimes we have to step back and really just say, you know what? I really need to take my hands off some things because some of us we could have been out the waiting season, y'all. We could have been done with the waiting season a minute ago, but there are situations that we have created because we kept putting our hands on stuff, trying to manifest things. We kept putting our hands on stuff, trying to create this life. We kept trying to do all of these things. And the only thing you manifested was a delay. Like, let's call a thing a thing. And we end up frustrated with God because it's like, this was supposed to work. According to who? Who said that? Who had been saying that? Like, really, we get frustrated with God because he won't move on our behalf, because he won't move on our timing, because he won't move based off of what we want in this season when this really was never a part of the plan. And we lose sight of that because we feel like, but God, I'm prepared. God, I'm ready. I want this. So that means I'm ready. Don't confuse the fact that you want something to be equivalent with it meaning that you're ready for it. We can want a whole lot of things. That doesn't mean that our character is ready to receive it. It doesn't mean that our heart is ready to receive it. It doesn't mean that our mind is ready to receive it. And not only that, it doesn't mean that just because we want something or we feel like we're deserving of something, it doesn't mean that we have the ability or capacity in this particular season to actually hold on to it if we got it. It's not just about getting things. It's not just about having what we want, but it's about sustainability as well. And sometimes we just get so focused on wanting the thing and obtaining the thing, we don't even think about, all right, well, what happened after you get it? Then what? What you gonna do after you've actually got the thing that you want? We want to be able to hold on to it. We want to be able to build with it. And so as you are thinking about being in this season of waiting, there's something that you want. There's something that you feel like this is the thing that I've been believing God for. I've been praying for this. I've been wanting this. Before you start acting and doing, ask yourself, am I being proactive? Am I operating in a spirit of preparation? Am I trying to actually put myself in a position where I am preparing myself for where it is that I believe God is going to take me to, whatever that may look like? Or am I being disobedient, trying to create something and manifest something that I don't even have the okay on God from? I decided that this is what I want, so I'm going to do this. Don't do that. Last thing that I want to talk about being in the season of waiting is that not everyone who is in this waiting period, not everyone is there because they have not yet got to the place that they want to be or got what they want. Some of you are in a season of waiting because you are not yet ready to walk into whatever is next. And when I say not ready, I don't mean you're not prepared. I don't mean that God hasn't given you the yes or the go. I mean, you have chosen not to go into the next because it's unfamiliar. It's scary. You don't want to start over. You don't want to leave your comfort zone. There are people you don't want to leave, things that you're attached to. You feel unqualified. Let's stop right there for a minute. Some of you feel unqualified to step out of your waiting season into the things that God is calling you to because you have been walking in an identity that is nothing like who God has called you to be. And for some of you, this identity is attached to what your parents have said about you, what people said about you when you were in school, and you have created this identity that isn't even close to who you actually are, who you were created to be. And so you walk in this identity and it makes you feel like you're unqualified. You feel insecure to go into the place that God is calling you to next. But let me go ahead and say this right here. I don't care what people have spoken over you. I don't care what people have said about you. Nobody has the power nor authority to stop what it is that God has planned for your life. So even those of you who are in a position where you feel like I'm not the best, I'm not the most well-spoken, I'm not the one who crosses every T and dots every I. I have a past. I have done some things. I have made some mistakes. Listen, you are in good company. There is nobody who is perfect. I don't care how they want to portray it, how they want to pretend it, how they want to throw it. Ain't nobody perfect. And there are some of you who your waiting is not a result of, oh, you're not ready yet, or you can't go here yet, or this isn't the time. The time is now, and you're prolonging it because you're afraid. And trust me when I say I understand it. I understand what it's like to be scared, and I understand what it's like to also go into something that's new. I was telling my therapist in one of our sessions, I don't like having to do things that I've never done before. I don't like being new at something. I don't like making mistakes. I don't like being in a position where I'm having to learn something that I don't get right the first couple of times I do it. And that's life, y'all. Like, that's boring. Like, nobody wants to live a life like that. But I get it. I get it from my type A people. I get it from my people who are perfectionists that we need to break out of. I get it. I truly do get it. but don't allow you to be the reason why you are stuck in a state of waiting when there's something on the other side of your waiting that you are prepared and equipped and qualified for. Do not allow negative self-talk. Do not allow imposter syndrome. Do not allow people. Do not allow your past. Do not allow mistakes. Do not allow insecurity to keep you from being ultimately who God created you to be. Because we oftentimes talk about how there are people who need what's on the inside of you. There are people who need you to be who God has called you to be. And that's true. It's 100% true. But also, why is it just not enough confirmation that God has called you to something? Why is that not enough for you to be who God has called you to be? Like, it doesn't always have to be attached to other people, even though it is. But why is it not enough to just believe that, God has called me to be something. God has called me to be someone. God has called me to do something. And that's enough reason for me to show up. That's enough reason to give him my yes. That's enough reason for me to walk in that in fullness and boldly. And I want to challenge you and encourage you. For those of you who have been wrestling, let me tell you something from experience. You can wrestle with God. You ain't gonna win, baby girl. I don't even know how any other way to say that. You can wrestle with the calling that is on your life. You can wrestle with the things that God has placed on your heart. But let me tell you this. When you have a burden for something, when you have a passion for something, that it don't go away. It's just not going to go away. You will have that. And when you are connected with people who need what is on the inside of you, that thing is going to push you. So I want to challenge you and I want to encourage you to get out of your own way, to get out of your head, to get out of this mindset that I'm not ready. I don't know how, I don't know when. What are people going to say? What are they going to think? Who cares? Like, that's not important. What is it that you feel like you're supposed to be doing? What is the burden that's on your heart? What is the thing that you have been sitting on? What is the reason that you are stagnant? Is it really because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing in this season? Or is it because you haven't listened to the last thing that God told you to do because you're scared? And if that's the case, I get it. Trust me when I say I get it, but I want to challenge you and I want to encourage you to do something that you have not done before. And sometimes it can be something small. So as I was telling my therapist about not liking making mistakes, not liking having to be new at something. One of the things I said I wanted to commit to this year, even though I've not done it yet, but we're doing it in March. One of the things I said I wanted to commit to this year was trying something new once a month. And it doesn't even have to be something I'm good at. The purpose of it is kind of not doing something that I'm always good at. Make the mistake. Get it wrong. Don't like it. It's okay. We have gotten to a point where I think we've become so meticulous about things that it's like, it got to be right. It got to look like this. It got to feel like this. Just do it. Just do the thing. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. Take another path. Try something else. It's okay. But don't allow yourself to miss out on what God truly wants to do in you in this season. And don't prolong the waiting. Don't keep yourself like the Israelites in the wilderness for 40 years for something that could have been done in 4 weeks, 4 days, 4 hours, whatever it might be, because you're prolonging ultimately the inevitable. There's no reason for that. I always think about how I struggle with procrastination. Be the first person to admit that. I will always say, every single time I have put off something for days, for weeks, when I went to do it, it took like 10 minutes, maybe an hour max. And after I did it, I was like, I could have been did this. A whole month I've been stressing about this. I could have been did this. What could you have been did this? What is the thing that you could have been done, but you've been sitting on it? You've been waiting because you're scared, because you're worried about people judging you. Tell them judge your mama. Like, that may not be the best thing to say, but judge your mama. Like, don't worry about what we doing over here. You just have to get to a point where it's like, this thing is personal. Like, I want to be who God created me to be. I don't want to miss out on what it is that he's doing in this season because of me. Forget other people, but because of me. So I just want to encourage those of you who you're in a space of waiting, or you're in a space of what may feel like the wilderness, and it's not because you're not ready. Not ready in the sense of that God hasn't equipped and prepared you, but you're not ready because mentally you don't see how you're the one. Mentally, you don't see how it's going to work out. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have everything figured out. You simply just have to believe. You have to believe that God has called me to this and he will create the path. He will make the way for me. And I can truly say something that I am like constantly having to remind myself of and reassure myself in is that when your heart is in the right place, God got you. He's not going to allow you to go too far off track. We have free will, absolutely. But I think when it comes to being so worried about making a mistake, that can paralyze us from actually taking any kind of action, moving, or anything like that. And something I've been reassuring myself in lately as I'm making decisions and doing different things, God, what's for me will be for me. And what's not for me, I know that you're not going to allow me to enter into anything that is going to harm me or to enter into anything that is not from you ultimately. I will make the choice because I know that I have free will, but as long as I'm staying close to you, as long as I am seeking you, you'll reveal anything that needs to be revealed. You'll remove me if I need to be removed. My heart just has to be open to that, because sometimes we can put ourselves in positions where it's like, I want what I want and I'm a God. I don't care. I want this. That is a very dangerous mindset to be in. But when you are open to God, I'm handling things that you give me with open hands. I'm keeping my hands open, because if you need to take it back, I ain't fighting you on that, because I want what you want for me. So if you need to take it back, guess what? That means that's not for me. So I'm going to be okay with it. So I want to encourage you all, while you're in your season of waiting, spend time with God, obviously. Figure out what it is that he's trying to show you, do, prepare, whatever in the waiting. The waiting is never in vain. It never lacks purpose. We have to be mindful of that. The waiting period never lacks purpose. We can miss the purpose in it because we're so focused on getting to the other side of it, but the waiting period never lacks purpose. So I just want to encourage you in that, because I know being in a season of waiting, it ain't fun, y'all. Like, let's call a thing a thing. It's not fun. It's not exciting. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be in this space where I just get to sit back and wait. Nobody says that. We always want to get to the next. We always want to get to the promised land. But there's some things in between that. And don't despise the in-between. Don't despise the process. And don't lose sight of the lessons and the journey that is also necessary, that's in the middle. We get real excited in the beginning when it's like, oh, I have this vision. I have this thing. I'm excited about this. And once we get to the other side of it, but y'all, the work is in the middle. The work is in the middle. So I hope that this helped you all. I hope that this was encouraging while you're in your season of waiting. Make sure that you share this episode with a friend who may be in a season of waiting, or just may feel like they're in a wilderness as well. Make sure you share today's episode. And until next time, don't forget, ladies, be whole, be healed, and be authentic. Have an amazing week. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into A Change of Heart podcast. I hope you were encouraged, and please take a moment to share with a girlfriend, and don't forget to download the episode. Lastly, I would love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram at Angel C. Walston and at A Change of Heart podcast. Have an amazing week, and don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic.